My name is Georgia Hale. I was 39 years old when I learned that betrayal does not always kick the door open. Sometimes it eats pizza in your kitchen. Sometimes it hides a car around the corner. Sometimes it laughs upstairs in the room where you sleep. I am a licensed fire protection engineer. Sprinklers, alarms, smoke evacuation, emergency power, the invisible bones of buildings people never think about until something catches fire. And everything depends on whether people like me did our jobs right. I liked that kind of work. Quiet work. Precise work. Work where the rules were written clearly, and if someone ignored them, the consequences were not emotional. They were mechanical, predictable, final. I had spent 20 years building that life. I started at 19, pulling pipe in unfinished attics, my shoulders bruised from ladders, my hands raw from fittings, my hair smelling like dust and solder and old insulation. I worked my way up until people stopped asking whose assistant I was and started asking whether I could sign off on their life safety redesign before the fire marshal shut them down. Every dollar I had, I earned. Nobody handed me anything. My house was proof of that. A 4-bedroom craftsman on a quiet street with old trees and a front porch deep enough for 2 rocking chairs. I bought it 3 years before I met Nathan Reed. Paid it off early because debt made me feel like someone else had keys to my life. My name was on the deed from day one. Nathan used to say he loved that about me. "You make everything feel stable," he told me once, standing barefoot in my kitchen, coffee mug in his hands like he had always belonged there. I believed him. That was the dangerous part. Then came my cousin, Kendra Vale. Kendra was on my mother's side, my aunt's golden child. 29 years old, pretty in a way that made people forgive her too quickly, with the resume of a bored teenager and the confidence of a CEO about to ring the opening bell on Wall Street. She was always between opportunities, always building something. Dropshipping, coaching, digital branding, a podcast that lasted 4 episodes and somehow had fewer listeners than family members. She called herself a future entrepreneur. Everyone else called her a couch surfer when her mother was not in the room. The pressure campaign started in June. Kendra had been kicked out of her last living situation, a friend's apartment where she had apparently overstayed by 4 months and left behind a bathroom sink full of hair dye stains, unpaid utilities, and a mini fridge that smelled like spoiled oat milk. My aunt called my mother crying. My mother called me. Then my aunt called me directly. Then my uncle. Then 2 cousins. Then my mother again. Family helps family, Georgia. She just needs 2 weeks. You have that big house. It's only you and Nathan. What kind of woman turns away blood? I said no. Then I said no again. Then I said no twice more because apparently the first 3 times had been interpreted as negotiations. Nathan was there for one of those calls, sitting at the island, scrolling through his phone with that half-listening expression people wear when they are already forming an opinion. After I hung up, he looked at me and said, "Would it really be that bad?" I stared at him. Yes. She's your cousin. She is a grown woman who has mistaken other people's homes for emergency shelters. He sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. Georgia, it's 2 weeks. It is never 2 weeks. He gave me that soft, disappointed look he had perfected over the years. The one that made it seem like I had failed some invisible kindness test. 3 days later, I found out he had told my aunt yes behind my back. Kendra could stay in the spare room. When I confronted him, Nathan leaned against the counter in the house I paid for and said, "It's my home too, Georgia. I'm not going to let your family think we're selfish." That sentence stayed with me. Not because it was loud. Because it was a small crack in the foundation. Kendra arrived July 1st with 2 duffel bags, a ring light, a gaming monitor, a mini fridge full of flavored energy drinks, and a tub of collagen powder the size of a paint bucket. She hugged Nathan before she hugged me. I noticed. I told myself not to. 2 weeks became 3. 3 became 6. By mid-September, Kendra had turned my spare room into something between a dorm room and a failed startup office. Her live stream lights glowed under the door at midnight. Her clothes appeared in the laundry room like she had mistaken me for hotel staff. My hoodies vanished from the hall closet. My good moisturizer disappeared from my bathroom and reappeared half-empty on her dresser. She used my razor once. My razor. Then put it back wet. I stood in the bathroom, holding it between two fingers, staring at it like it was evidence from a crime scene. The mess bothered me. The entitlement bothered me more. But what really got under my skin was the way she acted around Nathan. Not obvious at first. That would have been easier. It started with inside jokes I was not part of. Her laughing too hard when he said something barely funny, him looking at her before answering me like they shared some private commentary about my mood. When I walked into a room, conversations changed shape. Not stopped. Changed. That was worse. One night, while I was rinsing plates after dinner, I heard Kendra say from the living room, "Nathan, you're wasted on serious women." He laughed. Not nervously. Comfortably. I looked over my shoulder. He saw me watching and said, "She's joking." Kendra lifted both hands. "I joke with everyone. Relax." That word. Relax. People only tell you to relax when they know they are tightening something around your throat. I told Nathan later that the flirting needed to stop. He rubbed his face and said, "You're exhausted. You're seeing things." Maybe I wanted to believe that. At the time, I was working 12 to 14-hour days on the Crestview Hospital campus project. 6 buildings, full life safety redesign, fire marshal breathing down our necks, code compliance meetings that felt like hostage negotiations with spreadsheets. I left before sunrise and came home after dark. Some nights, I barely saw my own house in daylight. That was convenient for them. I did not understand that yet. The fraud alert came on a Wednesday. I was sitting in the construction trailer, reviewing fire alarm riser diagrams, when my phone buzzed. One of my older credit cards, the one I barely used and kept in a kitchen drawer for emergencies, had just been charged $47.83 at a pizza delivery place. I stared at the notification. I had not ordered pizza. Nathan had told me he was going to his brother's place that afternoon. Kendra did not have money to order water, let alone delivery. But she lived in my house, and the card was in an unlocked kitchen drawer. I could have called the bank. I could have texted Nathan. I could have waited until midnight when I got home and asked calm questions over cold kitchen light. Instead, I opened the delivery app. Recent order. 1 large pepperoni. 1 order of garlic knots. Delivered to my address 40 minutes earlier. Handed to someone at the door at 2:15 p.m. on a Wednesday, when no one was supposed to be home except Kendra. I sat very still. Either Kendra had stolen my card and ordered herself lunch, which was bad enough, or someone was there, sharing it with her. I closed my laptop, told the superintendent I had a personal emergency. Then I drove home. I did not speed. I did not call. I did not text. I drove with the windows down, even though the air was hot and dry, because I needed something moving around me while my mind went brutally quiet. Maybe Nathan had come home early. Maybe Kendra had asked permission. Maybe there was an explanation that would make me feel foolish and relieved. But the closer I got to my street, the weaker that voice became. Kendra's car was in the driveway. Normal. Nathan's black SUV was parked around the corner on the next block, half hidden behind Mrs. Alvarez's hedge. Not normal. He was supposed to be across town at his brother's. And nobody hides their car near their own home unless they do not want someone to know they are there. The house was quiet when I walked in. No TV. No music. No Kendra talking too loudly into her phone. Just a pizza box on the kitchen counter. 2 plates. 2 glasses. Nathan's watch beside the sink. And Kendra's lip gloss next to it, uncapped, pink and shiny under the light. I remember staring at those objects like they were arranged for me. Like a message. Then I heard it. A thump upstairs. Nathan's laugh. Low, breathless, unmistakable. The kind of laugh you know too well after 12 years with someone. The kind that tells you exactly what room his mouth is in, even before you open the door. My heart did something strange then. It did not break. It hardened. I pulled out my phone. First, I photographed the pizza box. Then the receipt stapled to it. The 2 plates. The 2 glasses. Nathan's watch. Kendra's lip gloss. My credit card sitting in the open kitchen drawer, not even pushed back where it belonged. Then I opened the delivery app and screenshotted the order confirmation with the timestamp and address. Evidence first. Grief later. I climbed the stairs slowly, one step at a time. The carpet runner muffled my feet, the same runner I had installed myself in April while Nathan held the flashlight and complained about his knees. The master bedroom door was cracked open about 4 inches. My hand did not shake when I pushed it. Every detail burned itself into me. My bed. My sheets. My boyfriend. My cousin. Kendra was wearing one of my old gray shirts. Nathan saw me first. He did not scream. He did not scramble. He stared at me like I had interrupted him at a hotel. Kendra sat up, pulling the sheet against her chest. And the part I will never forget is that she did not look ashamed. She looked annoyed. This woman had been living rent-free in my house, eating my food, using my things, spending my money, and sleeping with my boyfriend in my bed. And she looked at me like I was the problem. Nathan said my name once. Georgia. I lifted one hand. Get dressed. Kendra scoffed. Okay, can we not make this dramatic? I looked at her. She had my moisturizer on her face. My shirt on her body. My boyfriend beside her. Something in me went very still. Get your stuff, I said, and get out of my house. Both of you. Now. Nathan stood, grabbing his jeans from the floor. Georgia, wait. We need to talk. No. It just happened. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because liars always reach for accidents when they are caught inside a plan. You parked your car around the corner, I said. That is not a mistake. That is logistics. His face changed. Just a flicker. But I saw it. Kendra slid off the bed, pulling on shorts, rolling her eyes like she was being inconvenienced. You're seriously kicking me out? You have 5 minutes. Georgia, Nathan snapped, suddenly sharper. You can't just throw people out like this. I turned to him. This is my house. His jaw tightened. Our home. No, I said. My house. You were invited into it. So was she. Invitations can be revoked. Kendra stepped toward me then. Not to leave. To crowd me. She got close enough that I could smell my own perfume on her shirt. You need to calm down, she said, before you do something you regret. Then she put her hand flat on my chest and shoved me. Not hard enough to knock me down. Hard enough to make the back of my shoulder hit the doorframe. Hard enough to make the trim crack. For 1 second, everything narrowed. Her hand. The cracked wood. Nathan saying, Kendra, don't. Too late. I grabbed her wrist, twisted her arm off me, and drove her sideways into the bedroom wall. It was not graceful. It was not cinematic. It was fast, ugly, and real. Her shoulder hit drywall with a dull crack. She stumbled, cursed, and swung at me with her free hand. Sloppy. Panicked. I blocked it with my forearm and shoved her back hard enough that she crashed into the dresser. The lamp hit the floor. A jewelry box split open. Picture frames scattered across the carpet. Kendra slipped, caught the edge of the dresser with her mouth, and blood appeared on her lip. My sheets were still twisted behind her. My sheets. Nathan started shouting. Stop! Georgia, stop! But I had already stopped. I was standing in my own bedroom, breathing hard, with split skin across my knuckle, and my cousin bent over near the dresser, one hand pressed to her mouth. Get up, I said. Quietly. That was worse than yelling. They both knew it. Kendra looked at me then. Really looked. For the first time since she had moved in, the smugness was gone. Completely erased. She had just discovered that the woman who paid for everything had a line. And she had sprinted across it. You have 4 minutes, I said. She moved fast after that. Faster than she had moved in 3.5 months of living under my roof. She crammed clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed her chargers, her makeup bag, her gaming headset, shoes, tangled cords. Her hands shook. Blood from her lip dotted the carpet. Nathan tried tears first. Georgia, please, we can talk about this. No. It was one time. I looked at him. He flinched. That told me everything. Liars do not flinch at wrong accusations. They flinch at accurate ones. Get dressed, I said. His voice cracked. Baby, I made a mistake. You made a plan. Kendra dragged her duffel into the hallway, then paused at the top of the stairs, like she wanted one final line. Look, this got out of hand. Keep talking, I said, and I call the police before you reach the driveway. She went downstairs. Nathan switched scripts after that. Sadness became anger. You can't kick me out. I live here. You have a car hidden around the corner and Kendra waiting in the driveway. You can figure out your rights from somewhere else tonight. I'll call the cops. Please do, I said. I'd love to explain the stolen credit card, the hidden car, and why my cousin shoved me in my own bedroom. That shut him up. He dressed in silence. At the front door, he turned back and gave me the look people give when the script runs out. Not guilt. Anger. Because I was not collapsing. I was not begging. I was not giving him the chaos he could later use against me. You're going to regret this, he said. I looked at him. I already do. 12 years of it. The door closed. I watched from the window as Kendra threw her duffel into her car. Nathan walked around the block to his hidden SUV. Kendra tried speaking to him in the driveway. He brushed past her. They left separately. Good. Let them figure out the logistics of their little arrangement somewhere that was not my house. I locked the deadbolt. Set the chain. Then I stood in my kitchen for a full minute, with both hands braced on the counter, letting the adrenaline drain out of me one violent breath at a time. My knuckle was swelling. The door frame was cracked. The bedroom wall was dented. The dresser was wrecked. None of it mattered. It was mine. My damage. My house. My line. And I had every right to be standing exactly where I was. Then I picked up my phone again. Because the thing about fire protection is that you learn early. After the alarm, after the smoke, after the panic, you document the failure points. Every single one. I did not sleep that night. Not even close. People imagine betrayal as something loud, screaming, throwing glasses, collapsing onto kitchen floors while sad music plays somewhere in the background. Real betrayal is administrative. It is sitting at your dining table at 2:13 in the morning with a legal pad, swollen knuckles, and 6 browser tabs open while your entire life gets divided into categories. Assets. Accounts. Evidence. Exposure. Liability. Damage control. I built what I started calling the command center. Laptop open to every financial portal I have. Notebook beside me with passwords, account numbers, timelines, dates. Phone charging beside a bag of frozen peas wrapped around my right hand. Every incoming call automatically recorded. Every voicemail saved. Every text screenshotted. I was not grieving yet. I was stabilizing a structure after impact. That part I knew how to do. At 11:40 p.m., I called my attorney. Martin Ellis. I had known him 15 years. Sharp, dry, the kind of lawyer who spoke in complete sentences and never wasted adjectives. He handled construction liability cases for our company sometimes, but he also specialized in divorce litigation ugly enough to make judges tired. He answered on the third ring. Georgia? I caught Nathan with Kendra. Silence. Then, how bad? They were in my bed. Another pause. Okay, he said calmly. Start from the beginning. So I did. The pizza receipt. The hidden SUV. The photos. The shove. The fight. The ring footage. The police report. All of it. When I finished, he exhaled slowly and said the sentence that became my operating philosophy for the next 8 months. Secure the perimeter before you engage emotionally. What does that mean? It means stop thinking like a betrayed girlfriend and start thinking like the sole owner of a high-value asset under active threat. That snapped something into focus. By Thursday morning, I was waiting outside the bank before they unlocked the doors. The branch manager knew me by name. I had financed the house through them years earlier, before paying it off ahead of schedule. When I explained I needed to remove Nathan as an authorized user from every shared account immediately, her expression changed from polite to careful. "We'll need identification and signatures for—" "He's not on the primary ownership for any of them," I interrupted. "I already confirmed that last night." That changed everything. Within 2 hours, Nathan lost access to every card attached to my income. Every shared credit account was frozen or canceled. My direct deposit was redirected to a new institution entirely. Investment access updated. Emergency contacts changed. Passwords reset. By noon, nearly $350,000 in liquid and semi-liquid assets had been rerouted away from Nathan's reach. Every cent earned by me. I expected guilt while doing it. I expected sadness. Instead, I felt something colder.
Clarity.
Nathan called at 2:07 p.m. I let it ring. Then again. And again. By the 5th call, he left a voicemail. "Georgia, what the hell is going on? My card got declined." "Your card. Not ours." Interesting how fast language changes when consequences arrive. I saved the voicemail. Then went back to work. That afternoon, I changed the locks. Deadbolt.
Front knob.
Garage keypad. Side gate access.
Wi-Fi password.
Security codes. Every contractor who worked around construction learns one thing eventually. If somebody abuses access once, they will abuse it again. I did not intend to give Nathan or Kendra a second opportunity. My father came over while the locksmith worked. He stood quietly in the kitchen, looking at the cracked trim where Kendra had shoved me, then at my swollen hand, then at the hallway leading upstairs. He did not ask if I was okay. Smart man. People only ask that when they want comforting lies. Instead, he said, "Do you need help carrying anything to the curb if they come back?" I almost cried at that. Not because it was emotional, because it was practical. Because it was loyalty without performance. "I think I'm okay," I said quietly. He nodded once. Then he looked around the kitchen and asked, "Did they really order pizza on your credit card?" I laughed before I could stop myself. One sharp, exhausted sound. "Pepperoni," I said, "and garlic knots." Dad stared at me for 2 seconds, then muttered, "Jesus Christ," under his breath, like he had finally understood how stupid people could truly be. The police report became official Friday morning. 2 officers returned to collect supplemental information after reviewing the ring footage. Officer Ramirez, older, tired eyes, looked around my kitchen and said, "You documented everything before confronting them?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Most people don't. Most people are emotional during disasters. Engineers are not." I showed them. The pizza receipt. The delivery timestamp. The screenshots. My injuries. The cracked trim. The dent in the bedroom wall. The ring footage showing Nathan arriving secretly at 1:47 p.m., then leaving separately from Kendra after being thrown out. The officers photographed everything themselves. Officer Ramirez looked at the bruise forming across my shoulder and said, "The physical contact started when she shoved you?" "Yes." "And she swung first afterward?" "Yes." He wrote for another few seconds. "Okay." That okay mattered. It meant the official story was beginning to harden. Truth only survives when documented early. By Saturday, the silence broke. Nathan texted first.
Message.
"Your direct deposit didn't hit? I can't access the Chase card. Did you seriously lock me out? Georgia, answer me." I screenshotted it. No response. 3 hours later.
Message.
"I know you're angry, but this is insane. Kendra already left. I told her we made a mistake. Can we just talk like adults?" Adults. Interesting word coming from a man who hid his SUV behind a hedge so he could sleep with my cousin in my bed on a Wednesday afternoon. Still no response. By Sunday morning, the calls turned frantic. 23 missed calls before noon. Voicemails swinging wildly between apology and accusation. At 1:16 p.m., Nathan left one breathing hard enough I could hear traffic behind him. Georgia, please stop doing this. My account's frozen. I can't even pay for gas right now. You're overreacting. We can fix this. Just call me back. Overreacting. There it was. The magical word cheaters use when consequences arrive faster than expected. At 3:40 that afternoon, the ring notification lit up my phone. Motion detected. Front door. I opened the app. Nathan stood on the porch. Kendra behind him in leggings and sunglasses despite cloudy weather. Nathan tried his old key. Nothing. Tried again. Then looked confused. Kendra crossed her arms. She changed the locks? I watched silently from the kitchen table, 15 feet away. Nathan started pounding. Georgia! Another slam. Georgia, open the door! Kendra stepped closer to the camera. This is psycho. Interesting choice of word from someone facing a misdemeanor theft investigation. I hit the speaker button. You are trespassing, I said calmly. This property is being recorded. Leave now, or I call the police. Nathan froze. Not because of me. Because he heard the ring speaker. Because suddenly, everything was evidence. Kendra reacted differently. Oh my God, seriously? She snapped toward the camera. You're going to act like this over one mistake? One mistake. Not the affair. Not the theft. Not the shove. Just one mistake. Nathan lowered his voice. Georgia, please, we need to talk about money. There it was. Not us. Money. The front door suddenly became very interesting to him once my income stopped flowing through it. You lost access because you lost trust, I replied. Don't do this. You already did. Kendra stepped forward again, louder now. You're ruining people's lives because you got cheated on. Grow up. I smiled at that. Actually smiled. Then I said the sentence that finally made Nathan panic. The detective handling the credit card case called yesterday. Silence. Kendra's face changed immediately. Tiny movement. But real. What detective? She asked, too fast. Nathan looked at her sharply. And in that second, I realized something beautiful. They had not been coordinating stories. Good. Let them collapse separately. You stole my card, I said. You used it. There's video. There's delivery confirmation. There's a police report. Kendra scoffed, but it sounded weaker now. It was $40. Still a crime. Nathan rubbed both hands over his face. Georgia, come on. Nobody's getting charged over pizza. I leaned back in my chair. You really still don't understand what this is about. Then my neighbor across the street stepped onto his porch. Mr. Calloway. Retired postal worker. Excellent eyesight, and absolutely no hobbies besides observing the neighborhood like unpaid surveillance. Nathan noticed him immediately. So did Kendra. Amazing how fast people lower their voices once witnesses appear. Kendra muttered something under her breath. Nathan tried the soft approach one more time. Please open the door. No. Can we at least get some of my things? You have 30 minutes tomorrow with police escort. Kendra stared directly into the camera. You're enjoying this. No. That was the terrifying part. I was not enjoying it. I was simply done protecting people from the consequences of their own choices. There are no more free passes, I said quietly. Nathan looked like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he pulled Kendra toward the driveway. They left separately again. Interesting. Very interesting. I saved the footage immediately. Backed it up twice. Then called the non-emergency line again and filed a second trespass complaint. Mr. Calloway knocked on my door an hour later, holding a folded piece of paper. I wrote down what I saw, he said awkwardly. In case it helps. I looked at the statement.
Detailed.
Time-stamped.
Clear.
You didn't have to do that. He shrugged. You've always been a good neighbor. That hit harder than most emotional speeches could have. Because betrayal isolates you, slowly. It makes you wonder whether everyone secretly sees you as disposable. And then somebody quietly hands you a witness statement because they think decency still matters. I thanked him, then locked the door again after he left. Phase 1 was complete. The systems were secured. Now came consequences. And Kendra, unfortunately for her, had built her entire life on the assumption that consequences were things that happened to other people. Consequences arrived quietly at first. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just envelopes. Phone calls. Court filings. The slow, mechanical sound of systems closing around people who had spent their entire lives believing charm could substitute for accountability. Kendra was charged within 2 weeks. Misdemeanor, unauthorized use of a credit card. $47.83. That was all it took. People hear criminal charge and imagine enormous crimes, police chases, mugshots on television. Reality is far more humiliating. A detective calls. Paperwork arrives. Court dates appear. Background checks stop being clean forever. For someone like Kendra, unemployed half the time, surviving mostly on manipulation and borrowed credibility, even a misdemeanor was catastrophic. I found out through my attorney that she cried during the intake interview, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, said she thought Nathan had permission to use the card. Interesting strategy, considering Nathan had never once claimed the card was his. Their stories were already splitting apart. Good. Meanwhile, Martin filed for a restraining order based on the shove, the swing, and the trespassing afterward. The hearing lasted less than 15 minutes. The judge reviewed the ring footage, looked at the photographs of my shoulder and knuckles, then asked Kendra one simple question. Why did you return to the property after being removed? Kendra blinked twice and answered with the confidence of someone used to talking herself out of consequences. I still had belongings there. The judge did not even look impressed. You could have coordinated retrieval through law enforcement. Silence. Order granted. Suddenly, the cousin who had treated my house like an extended stay resort could not legally come near my street. Funny how quickly confidence collapses once paperwork enters the conversation. But the legal consequences were not the worst part. The family was. My aunt called first. 3 days after the restraining order. I answered because some part of me still believed adulthood could exist inside bloodlines.
Mistake.
The second I picked up, screaming exploded through the phone. How dare you do this to Kendra? I held the phone 6 inches from my ear. She made one mistake. One? I asked calmly. She's family. She slept with my boyfriend in my bed. You assaulted her. She shoved me first. She said you attacked her like an animal. Interesting. Amazing how often aggressors become victims once consequences start costing money. My aunt kept going. 20 years of enabling wrapped in volume and entitlement. You're ruining her future over jealousy, I finally interrupted. Your daughter lived in my house rent-free for 3.5 months. She stole my credit card, slept with my boyfriend, put her hands on me inside my own bedroom, and now she has a criminal charge because she committed a crime. Silence. Just breathing. Then, you always thought you were better than everyone. That one almost impressed me. The ability to turn accountability into arrogance was genuinely Olympic-level emotional gymnastics. I'm done with this conversation, I said. She's your blood. No, I replied quietly. She's your responsibility. Then I hung up. The cousin texts started after that. Some angry. Some fake neutral. Some laughably stupid. You're taking this too far. Nathan probably pursued her. People make mistakes. You didn't have to get police involved. One cousin, Darren, who had borrowed money from my father 6 separate times, actually texted.
Message.
You know Kendra's mentally fragile. This could really mess her up. You should think about what kind of person you're becoming. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because it hurt. Because it clarified something. Nobody had asked what kind of person Kendra became while lying in my bed wearing my shirt. Nobody asked what kind of person Nathan became while hiding his SUV around the corner like a teenager sneaking into a motel. But the second I stopped absorbing damage quietly, suddenly everyone became deeply concerned about morality. Interesting pattern. I blocked Darren. Then 2 more cousins. Then another. The family group chat disappeared from my phone, one contact at a time, like infected tissue being cut away. My father stayed silent through all of it. Until Thursday night. He showed up at my house carrying Chinese takeout and a 6-pack of ginger ale because he knew I hated alcohol when stressed. We sat at the kitchen island, eating in near silence. Then he asked, "Your mother called you yet?" I nodded. "How bad?" I swallowed slowly. She said maybe Nathan wouldn't have looked elsewhere if I'd been home more. Dad froze. Actually froze. Fork halfway to his mouth. For a second, he looked older than I had ever seen him. Then he set the fork down very carefully. "She said that to you?" "Yes." Silence stretched across the kitchen.
Heavy. Permanent.
Finally, he leaned back in his chair and rubbed both hands over his face. "I'm sorry." That almost broke me. Not because it fixed anything. Because he sounded ashamed. Like he had failed some responsibility he had been carrying quietly for years. "She's been talking to your aunt constantly," he said finally. I figured. She thinks Kendra's life is ruined. Kendra ruined Kendra's life. I know. And he did know. That was the difference. Dad stared down at the takeout container for a long moment before speaking again. "I've spent 35 years watching your mother excuse that side of the family," he said quietly. "Money, crashes, bad decisions. Every single time, there's a reason it's someone else's fault." I listened silently. "She's written checks behind my back before," he continued. "Paid Kendra's rent twice. Paid your uncle's gambling debt once. Covered bounced accounts. Always secret. Always because family needed help." I blinked. "What?" He gave a tired smile. "Yeah." I sat there, stunned. Not because I could not believe it. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Every time Kendra failed upward. Every time consequences disappeared. Every time my aunt acted entitled to rescue. There had always been somebody cushioning impact. My mother. Dad looked at me carefully. "You know what the worst part is?" "What?" "I think your mother genuinely believes she's kind." That sentence stayed with me. Because kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It is enabling. And eventually, the people being sacrificed to maintain that illusion become collateral damage. Me. Dad left around 9. Before he walked out, he paused near the front door and said quietly, "You were right to throw them out." I nodded once. He nodded back. No hug. No dramatic speech. Just truth. Sometimes that matters more. 3 nights later, my mother called. Again? Against my better judgment, I answered. She started crying immediately. Not soft crying. Performative crying. The kind designed to establish emotional authority before the actual conversation starts. "Georgia, this family is falling apart." "No," I said calmly. "It already fell apart. You're just finally seeing it. You're being cruel. Kendra committed a crime. She made a mistake. She slept with my boyfriend. You work constantly." There it was again. That pathetic attempt to reverse causality. As if employment creates infidelity. As if long hours somehow forced 2 adults into my bed. I closed my eyes. "You know what's amazing?" I asked quietly. "What?" "You have spent more energy defending Kendra in 1 week than you spent defending me your entire life." Silence. Real silence this time. Then my mother said the sentence that permanently changed our relationship. "I just don't think destroying a young woman's future over sex is justified." I felt something inside me go completely cold. Not anger.
Finality.
Because suddenly I understood something horrifying. My mother did not see me as the injured party. She saw me as the disruption. The difficult daughter, making consequences inconvenient for everyone else. I spoke very carefully after that. If your nephew had shoved me into a doorframe after sleeping with your husband, would you still call it a mistake? That's different. No, I said softly. It isn't. Then I hung up. And for 20 straight minutes, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the wall. Not crying. Just trying to understand how a mother reaches a point where protecting appearances matters more than protecting her daughter. Dad called the next morning. His voice sounded strange. Too calm. I heard the conversation. What? She was on speaker when I walked in. I closed my eyes. Oh. She said unforgivable things to you. I leaned back in my chair. I'm getting used to that. No, he said quietly. You shouldn't. Silence. Then, I moved into the guest room last night. I sat upright. What? I'm done, Georgia. My chest tightened. Dad. I've spent 41 years telling myself, your mother means well. His voice cracked slightly. At some point, intent stops mattering more than damage. That sentence hit like a hammer because it was true, far beyond marriage. Nathan meant well sometimes too. So did Kendra. People always mean well while they are destroying things. Dad continued quietly. I watched her choose her sister over reality for decades. I just never thought she'd choose them over you. I could not speak for a second. Then, finally, what happens now? I found an apartment. I blinked hard. You already looked? I started thinking about it after what she said to you. My father, the calmest man I had ever known, had apparently reached his limit quietly and all at once. Exactly like me. 2 weeks later, he filed for divorce. 41 years of marriage. Gone. Not because of one fight. Not because of Kendra. Because betrayal rarely begins with catastrophe. It begins with tolerated patterns. Small loyalties misplaced over decades until one final moment exposes the entire rotten structure underneath. Mom called 3 more times after Dad moved out. I let every call go to voicemail. First, angry. Then guilty. Then pleading. But never once apologizing. That part fascinated me. People who cannot admit fault will walk through every emotional costume imaginable before they wear accountability. By October, I had blocked my aunt, 3 cousins, and eventually my mother. The family tree got pruned hard that fall, and I held the shears without regret. Meanwhile, Nathan started his own war. Because once emotional manipulation stopped working, he switched to legal strategy. And unfortunately for him, I understood systems far better than he did. Nathan hired a lawyer in mid-October. Not a particularly good one. Aggressive, though. The kind of attorney who treated volume like strategy and believed intimidation could substitute for preparation. Martin called me after reviewing the filing. Well, he said dryly, apparently you are now an emotionally abusive financial tyrant. I leaned back in my office chair at the Crestview trailer. Creative. Oh, it gets better. He started reading directly from the motion. Respondent unlawfully removed claimant from the marital residence and severed access to jointly relied upon financial resources, resulting in emotional distress and economic hardship. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because hearing Nathan described as economically oppressed while wearing my sweatshirt and spending my money in my own bedroom felt almost artistic in its level of delusion. Nathan was requesting temporary support, housing assistance,
Attorney fees.
and partial access to the house.
Martin paused.
The good news? There's good news? The judge already denied the housing access request. That got my attention. Why? You are sole owner on the deed. The police report documents physical escalation initiated by Kendra, and Nathan voluntarily left the property.
Voluntarily.
Funny word for being thrown out after getting caught cheating. But, Martin continued, the judge did grant temporary support. My stomach tightened slightly. How much? $2,200 a month. I stared at the blueprint spread across my desk. Not because I could not afford it. Because it offended me philosophically. Nathan had contributed barely anything financially for years. His social media consulting business fluctuated somewhere between hobby and tax write-off. Some months he made decent money. Most months he didn't. But now, suddenly, I was legally responsible for supporting the man who cheated on me with my cousin. The law has a strange sense of humor sometimes. Martin must have heard the silence because he added quietly, "This isn't the final outcome." I know. It's temporary stabilization until discovery. Still feels insane. It often does. That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the support order while rain hit the windows. People love revenge stories online because they imagine justice as linear. Bad person hurts good person. Good person exposes bad person. Bad person loses everything. Reality is uglier.
Messier.
Sometimes you win and still bleed all over the floor while doing it. I paid the support order. On time. Every month. Not because Nathan deserved it. Because Martin kept reminding me of the same thing. Judges reward discipline. So I stayed disciplined. Then Nathan escalated. 5 weeks after the confrontation, I was reviewing fire suppression calculations at Crestview when HR called. The woman from Human Resources sounded uncomfortable. "Georgia, there's a process server here asking for you." My chest tightened instantly. Martin had warned me this might happen. Still felt like swallowing ice. The restraining order was temporary.
Ex parte.
Granted before I even had a chance to respond. Nathan claimed I was violent, unstable, and dangerous. Cited the confrontation with Kendra as evidence. I walked through the office carrying those papers, while electricians, project managers, and subcontractors looked up from their conversations. Nobody said anything. That was worse. The order required me to stay 500 feet away from Nathan temporarily until the hearing. It also suspended my concealed carry permit. 5 days. That was all. 5 days until the hearing. Still felt like acid under my skin. Because even false accusations leave residue. That afternoon, I sat in Martin's office while he flipped through the paperwork. "She's desperate," he muttered. Martin looked up. "What?" Nathan filed it. Martin blinked once. "Right, sorry." He rubbed his temple. Honestly, they've become interchangeable levels of exhausting. He tossed the paperwork onto his desk. "This is weak." It still got approved. Temporary orders usually do. He looked at me carefully. The hearing matters, not the accusation. Easy sentence to say. Harder to live inside. Those 5 days were some of the worst of my life. Not because I feared losing the case. Because of what it represented. My name attached to a protective order database. My employer receiving courthouse verification calls. The subtle shift in people's expressions. One sprinkler subcontractor who used to joke with me every morning suddenly became distant. Another guy stopped lingering in the trailer after meetings. Nobody directly accused me of anything. But uncertainty changes atmospheres. That is the part revenge stories skip. Even false accusations leave fingerprints. The hearing happened Tuesday morning. Nathan arrived wearing a navy sweater and an expression carefully designed to communicate wounded sensitivity. I almost admired the performance. Almost. Kendra sat behind him. Bad choice. Martin noticed too. "Oh, excellent," he whispered. The criminal defendant came to family court. The judge, older woman, sharp eyes, clearly tired of emotional theater, began reviewing the filings. Nathan's attorney spoke first. He described me as volatile, intimidating, emotionally detached, and physically aggressive. At one point, he actually used the phrase, "Ms. Hale demonstrated alarming rage." Martin wrote something on his legal pad and slid it toward me. Then why is she the one with documented injuries? I nearly smiled. Then Martin stood and dismantled everything.
Calmly.
Methodically. First, ring footage. Time-stamped video of Nathan arriving secretly at my house while supposedly elsewhere. Then, photographs of his SUV hidden around the corner behind the hedge. Then, the pizza receipt. Then, the screenshots. Then, the police report documenting Kendra initiating physical contact. Then, photos of my bruised shoulder and split knuckles. Then the footage of Nathan and Kendra returning to the property afterward, pounding on the locked door while being recorded. Then the trespass complaint. Then the neighbor's written statement. Nathan's lawyer tried reframing the confrontation as evidence of instability. Martin answered without missing a beat. A homeowner defending herself after being shoved inside her own bedroom upon discovering infidelity is not instability, Your Honor. It is self-defense. The judge looked directly at Nathan. You filed this petition claiming fear for your safety? Nathan shifted slightly. Yes. The judge tapped the ring screenshots. You returned to the property voluntarily after the alleged incident? Silence. Then? Yes. And brought the other involved party with you? Nathan swallowed. Yes. The judge leaned back slowly. That tiny movement told me everything. She was done. 10 minutes later, the order was dissolved. Not quietly either. The judge issued written findings stating the petition was unsupported by credible evidence and appeared to mischaracterize a documented self-defense incident. Then she warned Nathan about misuse of protective order proceedings. That warning became gold for Martin later. But walking out of that courthouse still felt strange. Not victorious. Just exhausted. Because even when lies fail, surviving them costs energy. Nathan caught up to me outside near the parking structure. Georgia. I kept walking. Can we talk? No. This got out of control. I stopped then. Turned slowly. You parked your car around the corner to sleep with my cousin in my bed. He looked down briefly. That's not what I mean. Then be more specific. Rainwater dripped from the courthouse awning between us. Nathan looked thinner than before. Not tragic. Just diminished. I didn't think you'd go this far. That sentence fascinated me. Not because it hurt. Because it revealed everything. People like Nathan genuinely believe consequences are optional if they apologize at the right moment. I looked at him carefully. You mistook my patience for weakness. His jaw tightened slightly. I loved you. I almost answered immediately. Almost said something cruel. Instead, I asked quietly, Did you? That landed harder. I could see it. Because Nathan loved comfort.
Dependence. Stability.
The version of me that absorbed damage quietly while financing his lifestyle. But love? Real love? Real love does not hide SUVs around corners. I turned and walked away. He didn't follow. The attacks shifted after that. Socially this time. Nathan called mutual friends, claiming I was emotionally abusive and work-obsessed. He targeted wives first. Smart strategy. Emotion spreads faster through social circles than facts do. Within 2 weeks, 4 friendships disappeared, almost overnight. One friend texted, Message. I don't want to take sides, but I think maybe both of you handled things badly. People always say both sides when they want moral comfort without moral courage. I deleted the message. Another friend's wife unfollowed me everywhere. A contractor I'd known for 6 years suddenly stopped returning calls promptly. Nathan even contacted my company's HR department, claiming I was unstable and dangerous. That investigation lasted exactly 3 days. My record was spotless. My projects ahead of schedule. My attorney provided court findings dissolving the restraining order. HR closed the matter quietly. Still irritated me. Because reputational damage works like smoke. Even after the fire is gone, the smell lingers. Then came the job site ambush. That happened on a Thursday. Cold morning. Concrete crews already working by sunrise. I was inside the construction trailer reviewing revised suppression layouts when the door flew open. Nathan walked in crying. Actually crying. No hard hat. No visitor badge. No PPE. 3 safety violations before speaking a word. Every head inside the trailer turned.
Electricians.
Foremen. Project coordinators. Everyone watching. Perfect.
Calculated audience.
Georgia, please, Nathan said loudly. We can fix this. I stood slowly.
Calmly.
Inside, my pulse was volcanic. But outwardly, nothing. That was the difference between us. Nathan performed emotions. I controlled them. "You need to leave," I said evenly. More tears. More volume. "You're throwing away 12 years. The framing crew outside had stopped working. People were staring through the trailer windows now. Nathan knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted spectacle. He wanted witnesses seeing a heartbroken man rejected by a cold career woman. So I gave him none of it. "You are trespassing on an active construction site," I said, "without authorization or safety equipment. Leave immediately or I call security." That threw him slightly, because I refused the emotional script again. He tried once more. "Georgia." 30 seconds. The superintendent was already walking toward the trailer. Nathan saw him, saw the security officer behind him, and finally realized the performance had failed. He left, sobbing loudly across the gravel lot, while 40 construction workers watched, calculated until the very end. That afternoon, I filed an incident report. The general contractor added Nathan's photo to the site trespass list, and Martin filed a countermotion.
Harassment.
False allegations.
Workplace interference. Public defamation.
Attached. Voicemails. Ring footage. Police reports. Court findings. Social media posts. The entire timeline. The judge's response came 2 weeks later. Formal warning to Nathan. Financial sanctions for the frivolous restraining order filing. And a gag order prohibiting public statements about the case. That was the turning point. Not emotionally.
Legally.
Because after that, Nathan stopped attacking and started collapsing. Slowly.
Quietly.
Like a structure whose support beams had finally failed, all at once. Winter arrived slowly that year. Cold rain first. Then gray mornings. Then the kind of silence that settles over neighborhoods after holidays end and people go back to ordinary life, pretending nothing catastrophic ever happened. By January, the divorce machine was mostly running on paperwork and exhaustion.
Depositions.
Asset disclosures. Mediation sessions that felt less like emotional closure and more like hostile accounting. Nathan stopped performing outrage after the sanctions hit. Turns out, emotional warfare becomes expensive once judges start documenting your behavior formally. The support order remained temporary for a while longer, but Martin was confident. "The protective order stunt hurt him badly," he said during one meeting. "Judges hate weaponized filings." Good. Martin studied me for a second. "You know what's interesting?" "What?" "You stopped sounding angry about a month ago." I leaned back in the conference chair. "I think I ran out." That was true. At some point, rage burns through itself and leaves something quieter behind. Not forgiveness. Just absence. Like a room after furniture gets removed. Meanwhile, my career exploded. In the best possible way. For almost 2 years, recruiters from a national fire protection engineering firm had been calling me periodically. Federal contracts. Hospital systems. Large-scale healthcare infrastructure. Exactly the kind of work I specialized in. I always turned them down. Stability mattered when you were financially carrying another adult. Now, there was nobody left to stabilize except myself. So I took the interview. 3 rounds. Technical review. Leadership panel. Final negotiation. By the end of January, they offered me a senior principal position overseeing their West Coast healthcare division. 30% salary increase. Stock options.
Relocation bonus.
A team of 8 engineers under me. I signed the contract on a Tuesday morning while drinking coffee alone in my kitchen. No celebration. No dramatic moment. Just one signature after another. Funny how rebuilding your life often looks boring from the outside. Dad took me to dinner that Thursday. We had settled into a routine after his divorce filing. Every Thursday night. Same diner near the river. Same waitress named Cheryl, who called everybody Hun. Dad looked lighter lately. Still sad sometimes, but lighter. Like a man who had finally stopped carrying a backpack full of bricks he forgot he was allowed to put down. When I told him about the new position, he actually smiled fully for the first time in months. "That's my girl." I laughed softly. "You know, you're allowed to sound proud more than once a year." "Careful," he said dryly. "I've got a reputation." Then his expression softened. "She would have held you back." He did not say Nathan's name. Did not need to. I looked down at my coffee. I know. And I did know. Not because Nathan was evil. That would have been simpler. Nathan just needed too much from everyone around him while giving too little back. People like that eventually become gravity wells. Everything near them gets pulled inward.
Energy.
Money. Patience.
Identity.
The new firm officially started me in February. That was where I met Marcus Vale. Project coordination meeting. Hospital expansion in San Diego. Marcus handled construction operations, budgets, scheduling, subcontractor coordination, all the chaos engineers pretend not to notice while obsessing over technical details. He was 38.
Calm. Direct.
Divorced. The kind of man who listened fully before speaking. No performance. No fake charm. No desperate need to be the loudest person in the room. Our first real conversation lasted 45 minutes after a meeting everyone else rushed out of. We ended up talking about clean agent suppression systems in data centers and why most architects still underestimated evacuation bottlenecks during healthcare redesigns. At one point, Marcus looked at me and said, "You explain things like someone who's had to prove herself to rooms full of men for 20 years. I blinked. Then laughed quietly. "That obvious?" To people paying attention. Interesting answer. He never asked about money. Never asked about my house. Never seemed impressed by titles. That alone felt foreign after Nathan. About 2 months into whatever we were slowly becoming, Marcus asked me something over tacos one night. Simple question. Sharp question. "Are you actually moving forward?" I looked up from my drink. "What?" "You're honest," he said, "and disciplined. But sometimes people stay emotionally attached to conflict because it gives them purpose." I leaned back slightly. "That sound rehearsed?" My therapist would say, "insightful." I laughed despite myself. Then Marcus grew more serious. "I just need to know whether there's room for something new in your life," he said quietly, "or whether you're still burning down the old one." That question stayed with me all night. Because the truth? For months, revenge had become structure.
Documentation.
Court filings.
Defense. Movement.
Without it, I had to face something much scarier. What came after survival? I answered honestly. "The divorce is almost finalized," I said, "and I'm not pushing anything anymore. The dominoes are falling on their own." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good." Then, "Because I don't share headspace with ghosts." That line hit harder than grand romantic speeches ever could. Meanwhile, Nathan's life kept shrinking. Temporary support kept him afloat, but barely. He moved 2 hours east with a friend because rent near the city had become impossible. Got a part-time job doing scheduling work for a property management office. $14 an hour. First steady paycheck he had earned in years. Kendra ended up back at her mother's house. Warehouse shifts. Debt judgments. Credit destroyed. Truck repossessed. No landlord wanted a tenant with theft charges and active financial judgments. Turns out, future entrepreneur sounds less convincing once background checks enter the chat. I heard updates occasionally through the one cousin I still spoke to. Never asked for them. Never stopped them either. The house sold in June. 8 months after the confrontation. I signed closing documents at 10 in the morning. Nathan signed separately. Martin arranged that intentionally. Probably wise. Afterward, I drove back to the neighborhood one last time. Parked across the street. Watched a young couple carry boxes through the front door while laughing about furniture placement. The cracked trim had been replaced. The bedroom wall patched and painted. Every trace of that night erased. Buildings heal faster than people do. I stayed there longer than I expected. Not grieving. Just acknowledging. That house had held 12 years of my life. Some beautiful. Some humiliating. All over now. 20 minutes later, a gray sedan pulled up behind my truck. Nathan stepped out. I almost laughed at the timing. Of course. He looked thinner. Hair shorter. Department store jacket hanging awkwardly off his frame. Not tragic. Just tired. He walked toward me slowly. I got out too. Might as well finish things standing. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then Nathan said quietly, "Your lawyer filed to terminate support." I nodded. The judge granted it Wednesday. He stared at me. I can barely cover rent. I studied him carefully. For the first time in 12 years, there was no emotional static between us. No manipulation. No longing. No anger. Nothing. Just consequence standing in front of accountability. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this," he said softly. I almost answered automatically. Almost comforted him. Old reflex. Then I remembered the hidden SUV. The pizza receipt. Kendra, wearing my shirt. "No," I said calmly. "It happened exactly like you built it." Nathan looked away. "You really think I deserve all this?" I considered the question honestly. "No," I said. That surprised him. Then I continued. "I think you underestimated how much damage selfish people can do to their own lives." Silence. Wind moved through the trees behind us. Nathan looked at the house. Then back at me. "I don't recognize you anymore." That one was honest. I could tell. I gave a small nod. "Good." Something flickered across his face then. Regret, maybe. Or simply realization that there was no path back. He opened his mouth like he wanted one final speech. Then stopped. Good. Some endings deserve silence. Nathan walked away without another word. Got back into the sedan. Gone. My phone buzzed 10 minutes later while I was still parked there.
Unknown number.
I answered because I assumed it might be work. It was Kendra. Georgia. I closed my eyes briefly. "What?" Long pause. Then, "You won." Not angry. Not emotional. Just exhausted. I leaned back against the seat. This was never about winning. Easy for you to say. I almost hung up. Then Kendra laughed quietly into the phone. No humor in it. "I'm living at my mom's house working warehouse shifts," she said. "I've got court debt, judgments, and nobody will rent to me." I said nothing. It was just a hookup. There it was. The sentence selfish people always use when minimizing destruction. Just a hookup. Just a mistake. Just one night. As though damage becomes smaller if phrased casually enough. "You stole from me," I said calmly. "You assaulted me. You lied to me while living in my house. Then you trespassed afterward." Silence. Then, "You didn't have to destroy everything." I looked out at the house one last time. "You destroyed your own life," I said quietly. "I just stopped protecting you from it." Another pause. Then Kendra said something almost childlike. "You're cold." Funny. People call women cold whenever they stop absorbing pain politely. Goodbye, Kendra. I hung up. Blocked the number. And that was it. No dramatic ending. No final screaming match. Just silence. Real silence this time. At 7 that evening, I picked Marcus up for dinner at a small Peruvian place downtown. He talked about a hospital project he'd landed in Portland while we waited for drinks. I listened. Really listened. Halfway through dinner, he noticed me smiling faintly. "What?" I shook my head. "Nothing." Dangerous answer. I laughed softly. Then finally said, "It's done." Marcus studied me for a second. Every thread cut. Every document signed. Every ghost buried. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand once. Good, he said. Simple.
Steady.
Now we go forward.